And gradually the victims convert these unhealthy emotions, this background of mental health dysfunction, and their learned helplessness in the face of persistent gaslighting. They convert all this into psychosomatic symptoms, into anxiety, panic attacks, depression, or in extremis, suicidal ideation and even suicidal gestures. I want to quote from my book, Toxic Relationships, Abuse and Its Aftermath, the November 2005 edition. Therapists, marriage counselors, mediators, court-appointed guardians, police officers, and judges are all human. It may come as a shock to you. Many things work against the victim facing the justice system and the psychological profession. Let's start with denial. I'm quoting from the book, Toxic Relationships, Abuse and Its Aftermath. Let's start with denial. Abuse is such a horrid phenomenon that society and its delegates often choose to ignore it or to convert it into a more benign manifestation, kind of narrative, typically by pathologizing the situation or the victim rather than the perpetrator. The authorities are loath to intrude and intervene. Most abusers are men, most victims are women. Even the most advanced communities in the world are largely still patriarchal and chauvinistic. Misogynistic gender stereotypes, superstitions, biases, prejudices are strong. Therapists are not immune to these ubiquitous and age-old influences and biases. Don't think they have a special lease on objectivity. Therapists are amenable to the considerable charm, persuasiveness, and manipulativeness of the abuser and his impressive thespian acting skills. The abuser offers plausible rendition of the events, interprets the events in his favor. The therapist rarely has a chance to witness, actually witness, an abusive exchange firsthand and at close quarters. In contrast, when the abused victim comes to the therapist, she is often on the verge of a nervous breakdown. She is harassed, unkempt, irritable, impatient, abrasive, and hysterical. Confronted with this contrast between a polished, self-controlled, suave, groomed, charming abuser and his harried casualties, it is easy to reach a conclusion that the real victim is the abuser. The prey, the victim's acts of self-defense, her attempts to be assertive, her insistence on her rights, are interpreted even by therapists as aggression, lability, or a mental health problem. The profession's propensity to pathologize extends to the wrongdoers as well. Abusers are thought by practitioners of psychology to be emotionally disturbed, the twisted outcomes of a history of familial violence and childhood traumas. They are typically diagnosed as suffering from some kind of personality disorder, an inordinately low self-esteem, or codependence coupled with an all-devouring fear of abandonment. So, example in the case of borderline personality disorder. Consummate abusers use the right vocabulary. They feign the appropriate emotions and affects. They display remorse. They repent. They regret. They are ashamed and guilty ostentatiously. And they sway the therapist and the evaluator's judgment. They're good at manipulating. That's what they do best. But while the victim's pathology works against her, the culprit's illness works for him as a mitigating circumstance, especially in criminal proceedings. The system ends up repathologizing and re-traumatizing the victim. Don't forget that.